Child with Teacher Miriam. Today we look at a very pertinent issue, the issue of stress in children. I don't know how many of us as adults ever think that our children could actually go through stress. You know, we are living in times when there is a serious call for mental health awareness, mental health well-being, and such. And most of the time, this is geared towards the adults because we are hearing a lot of stories of adults not managing issues and stressors in life and literally just losing it. But from where Teacher Miriam sits, we need to also realize that in as much as we need to focus a lot on issues that could lead to mental health issues and sicknesses among adults, we need to also put a lot of focus on children, and especially for parents, once again, for caregivers and for educators. It's important for the society to realize that children equally go through stress. And the definition of stress doesn't change because it's a child. In all our previous series, I have been trying to pass the message that children are not miniature adults. Children are complete, and childhood is a complete stage in life. And so we don't say that we will wait until when children have matured and have grown into adulthood, then we can start talking about stress. No, children can actually go through all the issues that adults go through, only that they will, and especially in regards to stress, only that they will, whatever will stress children may definitely be different from what would stress an adult. And so, what is stress? Same definition. Stress is any experience that requires so much demand on a child that the child doesn't feel equipped to handle. Basic definition of stress. And what is a stressor? A stressor is anything that places a demand on an individual, and a child in this case, that is way above the resources that this child has. So that is what stress is. Same definition as it would be for an adult. So do children go through stress? Definitely yes. And this I have seen as someone who works with children and also through interviewing several children. And you know, asking them, do you even know what stress is? Yeah, they seem to understand what stress is. And they may not give those scientific definitions of, demands being placed on them that are higher than their resources, but they do know that at sometimes they experience that discomfort and that feeling of being overwhelmed and that feeling of, just like too much being required of them. And so I asked them, so what stresses you? And interesting responses that may not even mean so much to adults came up. Things like, I get stressed when my parents are not at home. I get stressed when my parents stay away late. I get worried. Are they okay? Could they have been involved in an accident? I get stressed when I have a lot of homework. I get stressed when I'm preparing for an exam. I get stressed when I feel like my friends are better than me. I feel stressed when my siblings are given praise and like it appears like my parents consider them better children. And so many other responses. So, yes, that comes to say that children do indeed get stressed. And so, really, can we truly nurture a whole child if we don't address the issue of stress in children? Definitely no. And that is what our episode today is going to look at. What would we define, or what would we say about stress in general about children? Is stress all just bad? Definitely no. We have stress that could be referred to as positive stress, and that is applies also to adults. That stress that helps a child build resilience and helps a child learn to cope. So we are not saying that we withdraw all stressful or all experiences that may put a demand on children or on children's capabilities. No, we are saying some bit of it is good as it helps them build resilience, as it helps them, increase their capacity to deal with demanding situations. So that we would define that as positive stress. Then we have moderate stress. That moderate stress that some demand is placed on a child, like a child is required to prepare for an exam. So it's moderate because it is not prolonged. It doesn't stay for long. As soon as that experience is over, as soon as the child does the exam, they are good to go. The stressful situation is out of their way. But at this point, I need to mention that whether moderate or whether positive stress for children, um, every time they have an adult in their life, whether a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, or any support system from an adult that is, very present and supportive. Anytime they have that, it serves as a buffer to this stress. So regardless of the kind of stress that a child is going through, the presence of a loving and supportive adult will definitely serve to protect the child from the adverse effect of this stress. So if your child is busy preparing for an exam, for an end-term test, and they are feeling overwhelmed, if you're there and you're urging them on and assuring them after this test you're going to be okay, you're waking up a little earlier to revise for your test, it's fine. Let's go through this together. And if possible, you are encouraging the child. If possible, you're there by the child, you're helping them. I've seen a lot of parents literally studying for an exam with their children. So that is support, and that is good. It serves to support the child. It's a buffer. And as such, it helps to protect the child from the adverse effect of stress. That said, we have another form of stress, the most adverse, that toxic stress. Toxic stress in this case will be defined as that stress that is prolonged, a period of adversity. The child has to keep giving a stress response for a very long time. Now, this kind of stress, and as they are going through this, they're not getting support from any adult, no support from the parent, no support from a teacher, no support from a caregiver. So the child is literally going through it alone, and it's over a period of time. Then this prolonged response to adverse situations definitely can be detrimental to a child's development. So, how do we know if a child is going through stress? There are things we will definitely observe. If a child is going through stress, their behavior definitely is likely to change. So they are physical and they are also psychological or emotional indicators of stress in children. Physically, we will hear of physical, just things that we can, things that a child can complain of: stomach pains, muscle aches. The child is even diarrheaing. The child is has has stomach issues constantly, bloating, and such kind of things. Some children will even develop skin issues, asthma. Some children will get skin rashes. All those are physical indicators of stress. Children don't want to wake up, or they're sleeping in too much, or they are literally not sleeping. So all these are indicators of stress in children. Sometimes emotionally, children will be withdrawn. They want to stay away from others. They are not talking much. They are not involved in family issues. They just want to be left alone. Again, we can also observe change of behavior. Children are becoming more aggressive, very irritable, kind of quarrelsome. Just a small thing like this, and the child flares up. So those are indicators. And especially if as a caregiver or a parent, you're noticing that these are things like it's a sudden onset. The child hasn't been like this. So if you notice your child who has been vibrant and bubbly and happy is suddenly withdrawing, wants to lock themselves in the room, doesn't want to look at someone in the eye, suddenly has become so shy, doesn't want to talk much, is teary, like something small, and the child breaks down and starts crying. All those are things that could indicate to you that your child is going through stress. A child who loved school, for instance, wakes up one day and just doesn't want to go to school. Today they wake up, they are having headache. Tomorrow they are having stomachache. The next day they're just giving excuses upon excuses. So, it's not your time as a parent to now start lecturing them and telling them how their life is not going to turn out well because they are not going to school. It's important to pause as a parent or as a caregiver and check what could be happening. This is a sudden change. My child hasn't been like this. What could actually be happening? Your child could actually just be going through stress. They could be, they could be having unpleasant experiences in school. Maybe, uh, maybe the schoolwork, maybe they have changed grade, maybe something, just something has happened in the school environment that is making them want to avoid school. So, what could cause stress in children? Simple things that we as adults may not think are important. Just as discussed earlier in my random interviews with children, the things they cite, homework, you know, and as at times as adults, we want to reason with them as if they were fellow adults. We want to give them long lectures of how homework is good, of how, they need to work hard to turn out well and all that. And all that is true. But at what point do we realize this one now is putting stress on my child? And at what point do you begin to weigh, is the damage that this is likely to cause on my child, is it the damage, if I look at the weight of the damage that this is likely to cause on my child and the weight of the gain, it's okay. The child is going to may give me a good grade, but what after the grade? At times we need to pause and put our shoe in the shoe of the child. So how do we create this balance for them? So we are talking about schoolwork. We are talking about things like bullying. If a child is being bullied at school, they are likely to be very stressed. And we have had cases of children who have gone to lengths of even taking their lives because of bullying. So if your child constantly reports that they are unhappy, that a certain child is treating them not well in school, they are calling them names, if a child reports this and consistently, it's time as an adult in that child's life to take it up. Something as simple as changing schools. A lot of times as parents, we make these very quick decisions for our children. We are not involving them. So we just say, you're not going to be going to that school, and the reasons are best known to you because you're the adult and you know better. And you just go and enroll the child in another school. You even get them new uniform and you think it's fine. I know better. I know the best. I'm the adult. But change in a school can affect the child and make them very stressed. Something else, change change in your home, like where you stay. You just said, I'm moving out of this estate or I'm moving out of this town. Now I've been transferred from work. I need to move. And you go ahead as the adult or as the parent, you look for your new house in your new location and you start making relocation plans. Your children are in the dark, they have no idea. And so when all is settled, you come with, you know, um, those movers. You pack all the things, you pack all the your children's things, and you move into the new town. And you suddenly expect this child to settle in so well and move on like nothing happened. No, change in location, change in where the child is so used to. They have friends there, remember. That is a place they have called home for some time. That could lead to stress. Change even in caregiver. So if you have a young child and there is this caregiver they are so used to, and then maybe you are not satisfied with your child, with the caregiver's work, and you just discontinue them suddenly and bring in a new phase. That change is enough to cause stress to your child. Challenges at family level. If a family is going through something like separation or divorce, it may look like it's the business of the adults, but it becomes the business of the child because the child is growing in a context. And as I say all this, I know we are living in a world where all these things can happen. So I'm not saying this should not happen, but I'm trying to say as we go through the motions that we have to go as adults, it's always very important for us to pause and realize we have children in our lives and we need to check what our issues could be causing them. So if a family is going through adversities, separation, divorce, or there are constant wrangles in the family, more it's obvious that this is going to affect the children. Other things that are likely to cause stress in children are things like even change in income. So if the parents have been providing comfortably for the children, and then something happens and job loss or business goes down, children are likely to notice these changes. And in as much as they may not look like they can do anything about it, it's going to stress them, it's going to weigh down on them. Just because again they have not built capacities to handle all this. So there are so many stressors in a child's life. And so how then do we help children? How do we protect? How do we cushion children from such issues? As parents, we have the utmost duty, parents, guardians, and caregivers, to provide a secure, a loving, and a warm home environment. This has nothing to do with material things, it's got nothing to do with structures. Home is home. Home is home. Home doesn't have to be grand. Home doesn't have to have all those big things that children see in movies. Home for a child is a simple place where there is love, where there is, where there is assurance and where there is protection. So that is one gift that we can give to our children, regardless of our social and economic situations in life. Another thing as adults, because a lot of things, because children are they are co- they are quite dependent on us. So most of the time the things that could stress children also have to do with us. Say something like a job loss, something like a transfer to a different town. So there are things that you could go through as an adult that are likely to cause stress to your child. So your child, remember, and we have said this constantly, your child is mirroring, or your child is reading your reactions to the issues of your life. So if you're going through stress yourself as a parent, then your child is observing how are you dealing with adversity, how are you handling situations that are placing a high or a big demand on you. So as your child sees you trying to put yourself together, trying to take care of yourself, trying to handle situations with calmness, then they are also learning. So that's a way of helping cushion our children against stress. Another thing is, working with your children through the situations of your life. So, if, for instance, in a family there is a job loss, or there is or there is an effect on the incomes of the family, it's good to sit your children down. Again, explaining to them in age appropriate ways. This is where we are as a family right now. We may not afford uh, outings every Sunday of the week, every day of the week, or every Sunday, or every Sunday as we always did, because this is where we are right now. But we promise that we are going to do everything we can to make your lives as comfortable as possible. So, this way your children know that this is where we are. And then assure them it's not going to last for long. We are working hard. If it's a job that was lost or it's a business that is not doing well, we are working very hard to make things better. And as soon as we are back on our feet, we promise that we are going to do the best we can to make your lives comfortable. So let them know. Don't assume that, they should just watch and see how things are happening. So if you are planning to change your child's schooling for some reasons, at times we have reasons as adults that our children may not may not make sense to our children. So sit your child down and tell them, we have decided we are going to move school from this school to this school. If possible, as you're going to check that school out, go with your child. Check what your child feels about the environment. Do a few visits, 2 or 3 visits with your child so that the child gets accustomed. In essence, make your child a part of the decisions that you're making that could affect your child. Another way of protecting children from stress is seeking for help for them. When you see like your child is now totally withdrawing and totally getting affected, seek help from professionals. Take your child through therapy. If you have done everything you could as a parent, you have explained, you have checked on your child, but the effects, as you are still seeing effects of stress on your child, then seek help from professionals for your child. If your child who was not bedwetting, for instance, has started bedwetting, or if your child is beginning to show, to do things that were present at a younger age, we have a 7-year-old, 8-year-old who now is behaving like a toddler. That's a reason to worry. So if you've done all that you can as a parent, because that's an indicator of stress in your child, now seek help, seek professional help for your child. Have your child go through therapy, and if possible, also be involved in the therapy so you can be a strong support system for your child. While still at how to help our children go through stressful situations or how to help protect them, we also need to establish family routines, those things that we do together as a family. Even if it's just that one meal in a day, we could agree that we are going to always do either breakfast or dinner together. Family routines help to protect children's well-being. They have something to look forward to. Another thing is that we need to be aware and to be watchful of the content, whether through broadcast television, through books, through things that our children watch. We need to be considerate. What is my child watching? What is my child listening to? What is my child reading? Because some of the things that children read, some of the things that children watch could expose them to a lot of to content that could cause them a lot of anxiety and therefore leading to stress. So as parents, we need to be careful. Let's not just leave our children to their own devices in terms of content. Sometimes children read through things or watch through things that make them get nightmares. So it's important as parents to be careful what we are exposing our children to. As a parent also, as a caregiver, even from school centers, encourage also physical activity. Sitting in a class takes a toll on everyone, not just children. So when it is time for break, please don't take up children's break time. Let them go out, run about, and play. Let them enjoy their childhood. Physical activity helps quite a lot. Even from the home setup, let them not just sit the whole day. Let them go out there and play. Let them do work that engages them physically. Having said that, as an adult, that is the parent, the teacher, the caregiver, you are a buffer to a child's stress. So remember, you also have to help your child, encourage the child in your care to have a high sense of self-worth, a good sense of self-worth. Let them encourage them to feel good about themselves. Encourage them to feel self-assured. Show them that you believe in them. Show them that they are worth. Because some of the stressors come to make us question if we are good enough. But if a child has been assured and reassured and affirmed, then most likely they are not going to bow at the weight of someone making them feel small about themselves. And again, encourage a sense of control. Allow a child to get a sense of control of their lives. You can't be on your child's neck, whether you are a teacher or a parent or a caregiver. Like, you are on your child's neck from morning to evening. They don't seem to make a single decision for themselves. You decide when they sleep, you decide when they wake up, you decide what they do when they wake up. When they have a sense of control, this again should be age appropriate, because when they are young, of course, you put structures because they thrive in structures. But as they grow bigger, allow them, ask, do you want to go out? Do you want to stay indoors? Would you like to, uh, what would you like to do at this point? Let them have that little sense of control, so they don't always feel like they are under pressure. Again, uh, uh, have manageable expectations on your children, because one of the causes of stress on children is too high expectations on them. When you're putting expectation on them to behave in a certain way, to talk in a certain way, to perform in a certain way, that puts so much stress on your child, and you may never know. So have manageable expectations and discuss. Let your child, even when you're putting those expectations, could you sit down with your child and allow them also set targets for themselves? A lot of times we come in and we are saying, I need an A in this subject. I need an A star in this other one. But what does the child feel? So allow your child also to set targets. If you're leaving the house and you want your child to do a few house chores, let them volunteer. Let them come up with what they feel they can do. So don't always load it over them, because as you're loading it over them, they feel suppressed. They actually feel stressed. And then, why should we be so concerned about stress in children? I mean, it's very possible to say they are growing, they are young, they'll get over it. But the truth is, adverse stress on children, especially in their early years, definitely has an effect on their development, emotional, social, and more importantly, cognitive development. So we are concerned, or we are talking about stress in children, because in early childhood especially, the brain circuits are very vulnerable. So constant stress on children will definitely have an effect on the brain development of a child. And as it has an effect on the brain development, that definitely affects other aspects of development, like emotional and behavioral. So as adults in children's lives, whether we are teachers, whether we are parents, whether we are caregivers, we need to protect, we need to be a buffer zone for our children, so that we do not affect their brain development by exposing them to toxic stress. That is, having them constantly having to respond, or having to give a response to stressful situations, as we have discussed. So thank you so much for staying tuned to today's episode. Let's be safe spaces for our children. Let's be very mindful about their emotional and mental well-being. As we take time off to care for ourselves, let's also remember that we have children depending on us, and their mental well-being is squarely our responsibility. So thank you so much. Let's continue subscribing for more episodes.